Today is October 13th. I've got Scotty Cool Guy, Scott Yoder. Is it Scotty Cool Guy? At Scotty Cool Guy?
That's one that works. There's also dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but before we finish up, I'll get all your links. I'll put them up when I throw this to YouTube. I'll put all your links, whatever you want, on there as well.
Excellent.
So we'll start off with our 20 questions. That's really 10 questions.
Mm-hmm. Math checks out.
Beer, wine, or neither.
I stopped drinking about 5 or 6 years ago.
Oh, okay.
But whenever I'm at a place where I'm getting drink tickets, I usually opt for like some kind of beer,
Okay.
like a non-alcoholic beer, like the Heineken.
Like a Heineken
Heineken one
Extra.
is pretty good,
Yeah.
or the Corona one. Anything that you can put a lime in, actually, that's the preferred one. Like Corona is ideal, obviously, but something about a lime in a beer is just kind of makes it seem like regular.
Yeah. Next question: steak or fish or vegetarian?
Oh, yeah. It would probably be fish. It would be like salmon. It's like pretty like that's like the traditional kind of like going home kind of Thanksgiving, whatever holiday meal that me and my family will have.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's right. Because you're northeast, you're Seattle area.
Northwest, yeah.
Sorry, northwest. So yeah, so salmon's got to be the fish of choice up there.
Yeah, yeah, and even my stepmom and dad don't really even they've been pretty much vegetarian. They'll have like fish sometimes, but even now they just kind of cook it for the people that come over, and they don't really have it for themselves.
So so Thanksgiving, no turkey. It's a salmon.
That's a salmon, yeah. Yeah.
Very cool. How do you guys typically prepare that?
I guess it would just be like baked or like something like that. Yeah, I'm not always there for that particular part of the meal. My stepmom is a fantastic cook, though.
Yeah.
They have a like a whole like little. You might call it a garden, but it's very large. It's almost there's a lot going on there where they really love preparing food that's grown like right in their backyard.
You like to cook at all, or you?
I do. I've gone through more in-depth cooking in the past. Recently, it's been more like kind of utilitarian, but like trying to eat as many vegetables as possible kind of situation for me.
Very, very good. Favorite cuss word?
Oh,
I'll preface this again. Let me give you a little more detail. You're on stage, nice quiet part of your set, and you've got two guys just sitting there talking. What's the word that comes into your mind? Because I know you're pissed at them. They're totally distracting you. You're trying to do your set. You're at a nice quiet point. What is going through your head that you want to say but you don't?
Oh yeah, I mean, I do try to be like very open to what is going on in a room. I try to like let myself kind of flow with what's happening in a room, but in my head, I mean, like, it's the motherfucker is the best one.
Yeah,
it's the most effective one. It just makes it just sounds really angry or exciting to me.
First concert?
It would have been Green Day.
Green Day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome SoCal punk band.
Yeah. They were they said a lot of like swear words. Speaking of swear words, they said a lot of swear words on stage. Even I was like maybe 12 or 13. I could even tell then like, oh, they're just doing this because it's getting the audience riled up. I didn't super like think it was like this is cool. I was just like, I thought it was cool in the sense that they have a microphone and they can say whatever they want.
How inspirational is that for you?
I mean, it was super far away, and my mom wouldn't let me go down into the like kind of general area because I wanted to mosh.
Right.
But I had to hang out with my mom and her boyfriend, and it was cool. Mainly just I guess it was almost like watching TV. Honestly, it was like not a super cool moment in that sense, where it's just like they were really far away. I might as well kind of be watching this on TV. It's exciting to be like in
What year was this?
It would have been the mid to late 90s. I think it was the Nimrod tour.
Okay.
But
So I mean, at this point, Green Day is one of the biggest bands in the world.
oh yeah. This is they're
This isn't a club show. This is a stadium show or an amphitheater show. It's big.
Exactly, and I think the cool thing about that was that I had been to that venue before. It was the Farm Show Arena in Harrisburg, and I'd been there for like the literal farm show or the state fair type events, and it was cool to see all of that effort put into something that was like music that I really liked at the time. So instead of like being put into like a petting zoo or like to showcase cows and all the things that they do, it was more about like the cool music that I was like into at the time.
Now, you mentioned that your stepmom and dad were there.
So my stepmom and dad are on the West Coast, and I grew up kind of between my mom and that family. So
okay,
yeah.
So was this something they were there just to bring you there, or is that they like that music as well?
Just to clarify, it would have been my mom and her boyfriend, and I think they were. My mom was pretty good at like kind of keeping her like any kind of criticism of what I was into as a kid to herself. I remember she would like take me to a lot of movies, and it didn't really matter what they were, but like I remember seeing Kingpin with her, and I think that got pretty like kind of.
That's a little racy to see.
Kind of racy, yeah. And I was probably like same age, like 12 or 13, and it was like, this is cool.
Yeah, you remember what kind of music what kind of music is your mom into? Or
I mean, kind of like classic rock. Those were the kind of like LPs that she had like lying around, like Fleetwood Mac and stuff like that. I remember like she did the census one year, and one of my early musical memories is hearing Sade on the radio, hearing Smooth Operator kind of over and over again, and like being like, this is really catchy. But
well, in that time period, it would have been on every 32 minutes or something
like that. Yeah.
For first instrument.
It was the flute. For band for sixth grade. Yeah, I didn't want to play an instrument with a reed because I just kind of sensed that I had a sense of disgust with a reed. I saw how what you had to do with the reed, and it kind of made me feel weird.
Yeah. First album.
I was lucky enough to get 2 albums at once. So it was a tie between Nevermind by Nirvana and Dookie by Green Day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Favorite bit of kit that you've got?
The first one that comes to mind, I guess, is, and it's maybe not my favorite, but the most interesting and kind of the most unique, was I had a guitar by a company called Italia, and it was a guitar that had it was like kind of similar to like a Les Paul kind of style, like 2 humbuckers and a similar kind of electric switch setup, but it had a plastic top instead of a maple top on the body part of it. So it was pretty unique sounding, and then it also had acoustic pickups in the saddles of the bridge, so you picked up in a kind of an acoustic resonance if you used a separate output. So I recorded an album that used both of those functions, both the electric and the acoustic elements of it, and it was just so rinky-dink and kind of crazy. I mean, it was a modern guitar at the time, back in 2008 or so, but it was very much a throwback to like a very like kind of futuristic vision from the 60s kind of idea of a guitar.
Okay, it was shall we say a modern interpretation of an older piece.
Yeah. And something that's like probably doing more than it needed to do, but I was at the kind of like age and kind of like in the creative pattern of like really wanting to utilize all of that. I would probably not gravitate towards something like that at this point in my life.
Right. The favorite venue?
It would be the boat that my old band got to play. It was kind of like a really rinky-dink kind of foot ferry, like a passenger-only type of ferry that I would call from being in the Pacific Northwest. And and it did a little cruise in New York City, kind of around the Statue of Liberty, and we got to play. You couldn't bring your own alcohol on the ferry, obviously, but a lot of people snuck in a lot of it, and people were. There was a lot of revelry happening, and when we played, you could really just feel like this kind of sickening but exciting danger of the boat kind of tilting back and forth while we were kind of moving everything. It was exciting, and like it was a sense of danger in a real way that not you don't always have happen to you.
Right.
Like physical danger. We could all need these life vests immediately.
Favorite city?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty consistent lately. Asheville, North Carolina,
Yeah.
it has been like such a good time for me.
It's a pretty cool little hippie town, you know.
Yeah, yeah, I feel like kind of growing up outside of Seattle on a sort of hippie-ish island called Vashon. It was I sense a kind of kinship with that kind of a vibe. A lot of the smaller cities that I've played on the tour are really cool. Two of the smaller cities I've played had people chanting my name at the end of them. So the smaller cities have been kind of very enthusiastic, and I feel grateful for that.
Craziest touring story?
Oh, I mean, it might be. It was probably my first tour. It would have been a West Coast tour, we had played a show in San Francisco. It was very mediocre. We played with I just learned. I was like in the early stages of learning how there will be a lot of mediocre shows when you're kind of doing everything yourself, and just in general, you might encounter that a lot. But we were having a party with the people we were staying with afterwards in San Francisco, and we were on a rooftop, and we looked over the roof, and we realized at like 1 or 2 in the morning that our van wasn't there anymore. So our van had been stolen that night with all of the equipment and most of our stuff in it. And the really cool part about that was that everybody within the San Francisco and East Bay and like Oakland community, in the music community, came together and they got us on a bunch of extra shows on borrowed equipment. They got us to, speaking of Green Day, we got to play at Gilman in Berkeley, which at that age was like still like really important, and it's still like an awesome venue. I actually played it last year as well, but it was very exciting, and the amount of support and sympathy that everybody had for us was really profound. Our van was recovered, and another cool part of the community nature of that experience was that a person had spotted like a dubious Craigslist listing that had somebody selling like a lot of gear for like a weirdly low amount of money, like $80 or $90.
Right.
He decided to go ahead and buy that gear, and got in touch with us somehow, and just gave it to us.
Oh, that's incredible.
And it was most of our stuff. I mean, I think we still there's still maybe a guitar and some other, maybe a couple drums or something. Some random stuff was never recovered, but we were thankful we got our van recovered within a couple days also. So we were able to like actually continue the tour despite having the van stolen for a period of time. But coming out of it, it was my first tour and could have felt like a really traumatic kind of experience that I would not want to return to, but it really just whetted my appetite for like tour could be a real adventure, and any fucked up thing that happens to you is actually like really just going to be an opportunity if you just let it happen to you, I guess.
Right. I mean, I guess you can sit there and you can focus on the shitty situation of, you know, your van getting stolen, or you can focus on the incredible community that all gather around and helped. Which one's more powerful? Which one are you going to remember, 20 years later?
Yeah.
Well, you're going to remember both of them, but you're really going to remember all those people. And I would venture to say you've probably formed some friendships that you still have around that.
For sure, yeah. And just like it made me realize that tour, especially when you engage with it like on a personal level, when you book the shows, it's really just a way of just making new friends and connections, and in a real way.
So, you mentioned first instrument being a flute, favorite instrument being the Italia guitar. How do you go from flute to guitar? What's, obviously what year did you get the guitar? Because the flute was 6th grade.
Yeah.
So you would have been 11?
About that, yeah.
Yeah.
That happened divorce kind of might explain it. My parents had been divorced already, so I was kind of going between coasts. I went to a different school every year from 4th grade through 9th grade, just because of moving and just like going to different parents. So the flute kind of fell off pretty quickly when I came back from the West Coast where I had been playing it. I went to the East Coast for a bit to stay with my mom. Decided that it was like an objectively terrible school district that was really unpleasant. Eventually ended up back in Seattle where, I guess at that point I had, during that gap, I had just gotten much more into music, just like listening to and, taping stuff off the radio. And I went through a phase at one point where my mom had several different of those like kind of boom boxes made by Sharp that were pastel colored. She had several of these, and they had a record function on them.
Yeah.
So I was able to take these 9 Inch Nails songs and like these particularly remix songs that they had put out, and I was able to do this thing where I could play 2 of the cassette players simultaneously in a room with a 3rd cassette player that was recording it, and I could kind of create some further remix. That was my earliest way of actually like having some kind of musical expression. And so yeah, I guess just that was my gap between flute and guitar. When I returned to Vashon Island to the West Coast, I guess I was just making it pretty clear that I did want to play guitar. My dad and stepmom bought me an acoustic guitar that I was kind of getting okay at. But then when they bought me a Stratocaster and a small little amp from the pawn shop and from a garage sale, that just kind of like made everything go into hyperdrive. It was, much easier to play an electric guitar. It was very, very fun and accessible, and that just I just kind of fell in with it really quickly.
Mm. So, want to talk a little about your music itself now.
Sure.
So, I know you started off with your first band, The Pharmacy. That was you and 2 high school friends, or?
Yeah. It was me and really 3 high school friends. For a period, it was me, Brendan Bowers, and Joey Seward, for like a good few years, including that first tour. And then Joey left the band, and we had my other high school friend, Stefan Rubix, come in and fill like the keyboard kind of role.
You guys still all friendly? You guys still all tight? Or?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I was just taking my dog over to hang out with Stefan's. He has some kids, and we're having a nice time in the park a couple months ago.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, your music is certainly, shall we say, polar opposite of Green Day and 9 Inch Nails and all the bands that you have. I think it's much more David Bowie meets Americana.
Cool.
I don't know if that's a fair description or not, but it's, and I'll even go one step further and say early Bowie.
Sure.
How do we get from Green Day and 9 Inch Nails into this acoustic, guitar rock, with some psychedelic as well?
Yeah, I mean, I guess yeah, a lot of the music that was like this music, the zeitgeist of that time when I was growing up. So it was only natural that I would gravitate towards it. And I feel like a lot of that, there's some pretty clear jumping off points from Green Day at some point, getting into like punk,
Right.
like learning about the Germs. That was my first like punk type punk band that I was like really interested in.
Joan Jett produced Germs album.
Exactly. Yeah. And that was and her production, and the production of like their early 7 inches made music a lot more tangible. This, I mean, it was not quite the sounds of me with my mom's cassette players making a cacophony,
Right.
but it was like like super early stuff. It was like I could imagine myself taking a tape recorder and kind of like me and my friend Brendan like kind of pulling off something similar to the sonic aesthetic of this. And so stuff like that was really important to me as a jumping off point. Also, like as far as like being able to like relate what I was hearing into something that I could channel into like making like punk, especially like the kind of more grimy recordings of it, was very inspiring to me on that level.
It was good.
I did plenty of that. There's a label called Recess Records out of San Pedro where I remember ordering. I think I just ordered like 1 or 2 records. One of them was a record by a band called Pud, who had recently broken up. They were from the Northwest, and they put out like a kind of super like energetic, also kind of mix of like I want to say like their sound was like somewhere between the New York Dolls and Operation Ivy, which doesn't sound like it would work.
It
but
doesn't sound like it would work. Operation Ivy, by the way, one of my favorite bands growing up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, me too. Yeah.
I actually have an Operation Ivy tattoo. So,
Speaking of something that it was like super tangible, I remember hearing like specifically the Operation Ivy record and being like, I'm pretty, and also having a 4-track at the time, and realizing like this guitar just sounds like when I plug my guitar directly into the 4-track. It might not have been what they did, but I was like, I can maybe just get that sound pretty quickly.
Right. And and it was for the most part. I mean, it was a pretty easy ska beats. Just amped up.
Yeah.
So
and it's perfect for like like a sugar-addled tween, like to be like, oh, this is what drinking like a whole Slurpee sounds like.
But I mean, to me, Operation Ivy was so much more than that. I mean, their albums, they meant something.
Yeah.
It
course,
wasn't
definitely.
It wasn't just about teen angst and getting messed up. They were trying to change the world.
Mm-hmm.
Super
optimistic.
Yeah, I mean, even looking at the scene, it's like, we don't need another crowd. We need a gathering.
Of course, yeah.
Lyrics like that. I mean, I think they meant something, and they were. I think they were so much better of a band than they really get credit for. I think a lot of us within the scene, have a lot of respect for Operation Ivy, but I think on the grand scheme of things, musically, I think they're a band that's kind of been forgotten.
Yeah, kind of like a blip almost.
Yeah.
But like a record I like played into the ground like over and over again.
Yeah. 100%. But I still have some of my 7 inches from Operation Ivy from when I was 16, 17 years old.
Yeah.
I got a few years on you.
Yeah.
But maybe a decade. But they're super important band to me. Were you into the ska scene at all, or just?
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
It was pretty popular at my high school. There was a band called Duck and Cover, that were very like Operation Ivy influenced. And they, my high school on Vashon Island had this thing where every maybe it's like one Friday a month, or maybe every other Friday, we would have an open mic as a like kind of like 20 to 30 minute kind of half period in the late morning. So oftentimes that would be, we would have this classmate of mine who would do tap dancing, and he was like phenomenal at it. Or we would have maybe someone would read a poem or something, but oftentimes there would be a whole band would come in and perform a couple songs.
That's cool.
So Duck and Cover, they would come in and perform their like super hyper like ska songs. Or we also had a band called the Vampiricks that were like a pretty like black metal influenced band that were like very jarring for like 10 a.m. on a Friday.
Yeah. How much time do you spend back home?
Probably like, I mean, it's hard to say. Coming out of the kind of COVID era, I'm getting back into what feels comfortable, which is like half and half.
Yeah. So you had new album came out last year.
Yep.
Before that, I think you put a singles album out in 19.
Yeah.
No, sorry. That I think that came out in 20, and then you had a whole album in 18.
Yeah. So for that project, that was something I got to do with a great producer based out of Olympia. I'm not always sure whether or not to credit him by his actual name, which is Dave Harvey. I don't think he would hide that, but he's also known as Captain Trips Balsington. So his professional producer name would be that, and you can find, if you type that into Discogs, you'll find like pages and pages of great records that he's produced. But he and I got acquainted, and we endeavored on a project to basically record a 7-inch every kind of like every month or so while I was touring in 2019, like every other month basically. So it would end up that I would record what would total a full album by the end of the year. So in 2019 I recorded 6 7-inches and put them out every other month, so totaling 12 songs.
Yeah.
And that was kind of my fun project for that year. And then when I got done with the tours and everything went into lockdown, I ended up re-recording all of those songs as more of a cohesive album.
Now, do you typically start with a melody and then add lyrics, or do you start with lyrics and add melody?
A little bit half and half, but a lot of times I kind of try to do them simultaneously, where I will just sing, make mouth sounds, and like find the words that feel the best with whatever my voice is doing melodically. That's usually my most most intuitive way for me to do it.
What is your touring thing? Your touring situation now. Is this a solo acoustic tour, or is this you have a band right now? What do you?
Oh yeah, so for this tour, I am solo. I do have a kind of a pretty like hybrid situation where I play electrically with some backing tracks. I have a light show, and I have a couple, bits of monologues that I go into that I've been kind of developing as the tour goes on. I do have one song that I play on an acoustic guitar, so I've kind of outnumbered that.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think you did Kill Your Idol last night.
I did. Yeah.
Who did you play with last night?
I played with Violet Silhouette.
Oh, fantastic. What's good? Dan and Zai.
Yeah.
Wonderful guys.
Yeah.
Both of those guys are in like 30 bands.
Yeah. Zai's brother was playing with them last night too on bass. Yeah.
Yeah. Nicest guys ever.
Super sweet.
Yeah. And like I said, I mean, both of them, so talented, and glad you got to play with them, because they're wonderful guys, and they're great. You're going to Orlando tonight,
I
right?
am. Yeah.
So I imagine you are this tour. I mean, I saw you Jacksonville down to Miami up to Orlando. I don't know where you go after that.
Yeah.
But put lots of miles on this tour. What are you listening to as you're driving? Are you audiobooks? Are you music? Are you half and half?
No, the third option, it would be the podcast.
Yeah.
That's kind of, I do, this is actually probably the point of tour where I might switch more over into audiobooks for pacing purposes. It does depend on the tour, though. If the drives are averaging out to be like 2 to 3 hours a day,
The podcast is perfect.
the podcast is kind of better for that.
Yeah.
But the audiobooks come in handy where my last tour was similar kind of loop of the country, but in a much more of a condensed timeline, about 5 weeks. This time I've got 2 months, so I can kind of, just take my time.
What's your favorite podcast?
What's my favorite one right now? I really like, it's called The Greatest Generation. It's a podcast about Star Trek.
Oh, okay.
And it's pretty goofy, and it's not like kind of like a serious kind of. I mean, they're definitely nerds, but they're very like sweet and goofy, and it's very charming, and I really enjoy that because I grew up with Star Trek, and it's like this like very optimistic vision of the future that I feel like is really important to have, even though I don't believe a minute of it. I don't believe the future is that optimistic.
Well, I mean, listen. I mean, we're not watching these shows because we think they're predicting the future. We're trying to escape from whatever is going on in our lives for half an hour, 2 hours. Or if you're like me and my wife, sometimes we'll binge watch something for 4 or 5 hours.
Sure, yeah.
We won't watch a 5-hour movie, but we'll watch 5-hour-long episodes of something.
Exactly, yeah.
I have no idea how that works out.
Yeah. We have some neighbors.
It's getting violent up in here. You want to tell everybody who our other guest is that's not
that would
on
be
camera?
Yeah, that would be Nilsson.
Nilsson,
as in Harry.
Yeah.
He's never been present for a recording before.
No?
He's
Let's get him on camera.
Okay,
Can
good.
we get him on camera?
Yeah.
There we go.
So he's right by the mic.
Yeah.
So we can kind of just check things out.
Yeah, he was keeping us safe. I think we've got a band playing tonight, so I think we've got Load In starting here in a little bit.
Oh, at Voltaire?
No, Voltaire's over. This is actually, we're inside Respectable Street now. I believe Voltaire is where I think I saw you play there about 2 years ago now, maybe a little longer.
No, that would have been pre-COVID, so
God.
It would have been longer.
Yeah. So I guess the question is, what do you wish people asked you?
Oh, yeah. I wish people asked me about the strange foods of the country. There are a lot of strange foods. A big part of being on tour it really is kind of like, and kind of an exciting part about being on tour is to find how you find sustenance, because your day is kind of a big blank spot that is largely taken up by driving and some logistics, and pretty boring for like a big portion of it until you get to, not even until you get to the show, because like next door these guys are just gonna be lugging amps upstage and then waiting around, and then eventually sound will happen, and then yada yada. So it's really not super exciting, but an exciting thing that you can fill that part of the day with is strange food. Something that I wish I would have encountered more of directly was something called hot dish, and it's a Midwestern type of food that is some kind of starchy, cheesy thing that I did not get a chance to actually have happen to me. It's something where I feel like I took it for granted because I was in the Midwest. It was a couple weeks, and I was almost out of it, and then I saw it on a menu somewhere, and I didn't order it, and now it's lost forever. I will be returning to a corner of technically the Midwest when I play Carbondale, Illinois, in like a week or two, which is like the very southern tip of Illinois, right by Tennessee, I guess.
Okay.
It's an area of the country I'm not familiar with. Maybe they have their own hot dish.
So, what's your favorite food that you've actually encountered?
Whoa, does that get picked up?
I don't know.
Yeah, cool.
That nice little bit of South Florida audio sunshine. With
it's almost like I'm about to tell a haunted story about food, but a lot of times my favorite foods are really just kind of like indulgent breakfast foods. But I'm always looking for something that is like more like a funny combination that I don't think about. I guess like a fried bologna sandwich is not that exciting, but it is strange where I come from. Adding peanut butter to multiple things. I feel like you can add peanut butter to more things than you realize.
Peanut butter is just one of the greatest inventions of mankind.
I know, it's so sad when
you
people can't have it, though.
You will always find peanut butter and jelly Uncrustables in my freezer.
Oh, good.
Always.
Yeah. Actually, something I really like to have happen to me is to have a person make me a peanut butter jelly sandwich at a restaurant. Because I mean, I actually have the fixins for that in my van pretty much. But so there's something about having a person make that for you in a restaurant. It's so comforting. And not even a restaurant. I remember my old band, we toured, and I was going through a time where I was like really trying to figure out like some kind of stomach problem. So I wasn't eating dairy so much. So we went to a donut place, and one of their options was like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich for like $1.25, and I was like, oh, this sounds nice. And the whole staff was just like elderly ladies, and it just felt so comforting to have this elderly lady make me this peanut butter and jelly sandwich and cut it diagonally and serve it to me on like a little paper plate.
And I wonder for an extra $2 you could get a hug from the little old lady.
I went back to that same donut shop, and I ordered something kind of the polar opposite. And the vibe is a bit different, but it's still a great donut place. It's called Donut Parade in Spokane, Washington, and it's 24 hours, which is super exciting. But I got so instead of an apple fritter, I got a pickle fritter, like a dill pickle fritter.
Oh my God!
And it was pretty incredible because like how peanut butter works in so many things, I feel like pickles on the opposite end of the spectrum work on many things.
I mean, I think if you add enough, salt and sugar to it.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah, these are the salt and sugar. That they work well together sometimes. Most of the time.
Yeah, and then from there, if you add some spice to it, then you've got the fat from the fryer. Yeah. You've got the spice. You got the salt. You got the sugar. You got the sour.
Now you got a stew.
I mean, you got everything there, and in a little handheld gut bomb.
Yeah. It was like I had that at the very beginning of tour, and it was like my kickoff into like having funny foods on tour.
There's so many great like regional foods, and then like you go to New Orleans, obviously you think of the beignets and you think of the gumbo, and I heard that there's if you go off the beaten path, there's a huge Korean population there, and you can get like some of the best Korean food in the country.
Sure.
In New Orleans.
Okay, that's something I should. I'm on my way to go do potentially. Yeah.
Oh, well, that may be interesting. It's you only eat so many beignets and gumbo, right? Actually, no, I can eat a lot of gumbo.
Yeah, gumbo is
a lot of crawfish boils.
One of my favorite experiences, like food experiences in New Orleans that I've had several times, is to get fried chicken at a gas station that's over by Bayou St. John, kind of by the Lindy Boggs, like abandoned hospital over there, and then just like sit down in the grass by the bayou and just eat fried chicken. It's like super cheap, it's super salty, maybe not even that fresh fried chicken that's from a gas station. But to me, that is like a very personal, like quintessential New Orleans kind of dining experience.
South Florida, we're obviously known for our Cuban food. Into Cuban sandwich down here.
Is this my last chance? I'm going to Orlando today. Is there still a chance for me to do that?
There's still a chance to do that.
Okay, good. Okay,
Yeah.
you're reminding me. It's getting towards lunchtime, and I should probably have something. I know somebody at my show at Bar Nancy was telling me about a guava involved
Yes.
sandwich.
Well, no, you'll have guava pastries. So typically,
oh, sure. Okay.
It's typically a puff pastry with a guava paste and a little bit of cream cheese in it.
Fantastic.
Yeah. A matter of fact, you know what? When we're done here, I'll drive you there myself. It's right down the street.
Oh, amazing.
And we'll go get a Cuban sandwich, a guava and cheese, and maybe a mango drink.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
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 Let's make it
You know
happen.
what? Let's make it happen. The hell with this interview. You ready to go?
I am.
Yeah, let's do it.